Good evening. Welcome to the December 12th meeting of the Upper Darby Planning Commission. We'll call the meeting to order right now at 7:01. Visual roll call. Everyone is in attendance tonight, as well as Mike Galante, the township engineer, and Joshua Chase, our assistant director in L&I and subdivision planning. You have the minutes in front of you from last month's meeting. Are there any corrections, omissions, additions needed for the minutes?
No, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. We have no communications or bills to discuss tonight. We do not have any subdivision or land development proposals in front of us tonight. So we can move right into some zoning discussions. There are two things to discuss tonight. We want to follow up on some of the discussion we started on the smoke shop parts of the code and what may or may not be missing from that and how it could be tightened up. Josh can lead us in that, and then we're going to talk about a review of our code with regards to solar planning and installations and so on that was done. So how about it, Josh?
Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about the smoke shop ordinance because we did a lot last month. But when we left here, I think we walked away with some questions. And then I also said that I'd reach out to our solicitor, and I kind of wanted to give you guys that update. As of right now, they told us to go for it, essentially. So I think from here on out, we'll kind of go full steam ahead and hopefully have you guys with some sort of drafts by January or February. That being said, some of the things that we're still looking at, and I'll just kind of read from the minutes here, is that 5-part recommendation. First is increasing the distance between allowable smoke shop locations, reducing the districts where smoke shops are permitted, redefining the requirements for being considered a smoke shop to increase enforceability, amending the category to be more restrictive, and diversifying the definition. Wait, did I say that twice?
No.
No, okay, diversifying the definition. So does anybody have any questions or any thoughts? And I'm particularly interested to hear about the enforceability of, what is a smoke shop?
Can you go over the 5 again? Distance,
Mhm.
reduce the locations,
Redefining the requirements for what it's considered. So right now, it's 20% or more of tobacco products means you're a smoke shop, which is something that we can't really enforce because I can't go through, whole inventories. It's not an enforceable measure. And then redefining the requirements, amending the use category to be more restrictive and diversifying the definition of a smoke shop.
Along those lines, I noticed most of these are not, I don't know, a lot of them are called, it's on, vape shops. So
Vape
we need
shop.
to clarify that in our draft ordinance that when we say smoke shop, we mean smoke/vape.
The existing ordinance does include it. Yeah, it says
All right.
vapes and I think it calls it ENDS, which I think is an acronym for vapes and other products of similar nature.
Okay, all right.
I'm trying to recall, didn't we have a specific question for solicitor? I feel like there was something like, we were kind of batting back and forth and we were just like, we really should get their input on, but I can't recall exactly what it was.
My recollection was we were going to ask, is there some sort of existing case law for why it's written the way it is?
Oh, was that, okay.
Are we going to do all this work and then hit a wall that says, well, because of, so-and-so versus, so-and-so township, it has to be a special exception in every commercial district.
Okay.
And when I brought it to the solicitor meeting, they told me that they'll look into it, but to go ahead.
Oh, okay.
So I think they're still gonna go back and take a look, but we at least get permission to start going, and worst case scenario, it gets thrown out.
Okay.
Well, isn't the biggest consideration is what exactly constitutes a smoke store or a vape store. I mean, everything kind of rests on that.
That's important, and being able to prove that one is or isn't also has been an issue.
Well, through their sign, they self-identify as such, they would fit into that category.
Sometimes.
Are there any situations that you know of now where the sign would, it says like Mary's Dress Shop, but they're really selling smokes?
No, usually they'll just say, Jay's Convenience Store. And you'll go in and it's probably 50% smoke items or accessories.
Okay. So that's going to be our biggest challenge right there is
Enforcing it.
the signing, where the signs indicate one thing, but the actual business. If it says they're a smoke shop, then we can just say you fell in that category.
Right. So yeah, it's a multi-pronged issue for sure.
So what do you think would be the best solution in that case?
For the 20%, I'm not sure yet. We're going to take a look at some other codes. But yeah, we need something more enforceable, for sure. Just because, what we're doing now with 20% of the total merchandise, what do you count as total merchandise? Every bag of chips, every stick of gum.
Well, you can just do
Every
square
piece of
footage
rolling-
like retail does. They just take a rack and they measure the rack. So if in this case, like, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is there any way, and I'll go do it if you want me to, just give me certain streets and I'll just start driving around, look at certain stores. And if it's not a smoke shop, but it looks like they're selling mostly smoked products, and there'll be some random checks. And if they have 80% smoking items and they haven't applied for that category, then they get shut down immediately. And they're told that when they apply for the business. I mean, isn't that what you have to tell people? When they enter college, if you don't pass the tests, you're kicked out.
Right, but it's the burden to prove that it's 80% is difficult. So, I like what you said about square footage. I think that's definitely a path to follow. I guess you just have to do it vertically as well for shelving but I think it's a good idea and a route we should
Well, there's a
pursue.
retail software that you can use when they set up stores. I don't know how expensive it is,
I
but,
was gonna say, I don't know if we're in the business of buying any new software right now.
but we could actually just use our own. I mean, if somebody has a tape measure and they just hold it, and somebody else, it's better than nothing, I guess, if they're going to argue with this, then,
Yeah, so it's definitely an idea going from percent of materials to square footage of shelving compared to total square footage of the area.
right, like the liquor control board, when you put liquor in the supermarket, they limit you what percent of the store can be liquor versus chicken and eggs or groceries, or whatever.
Okay, yeah, maybe that would be a good one to look at.
Right, but do they know if they apply for, a convenience store, grocery store, and it turns out they're a smoke shop, that they can be shut down within 24 hours?
They know.
They do?
And they're gonna know soon that we can't prove it either.
Pardon me?
They're gonna know soon that we can't prove it either, that they're a smoke shop.
So procedurally, essentially, you guys want to look at some other codes and maybe some best practices out there and try to put together a draft of some of the proposed changes?
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that. And then
Exactly, yeah, we'll try and follow along these 5 points, and then for the ones that maybe need more drilling down on, we'll find some best practices. We'll hope to have that early winter of 2023.
Well, what happens with, is there considered annual inspection or biannual? Because the 20% can change once they open. 6 months later, they decide, well, there's a greater market in vapes than there is in potato chips.
if the business opens later, then
No.
the change.
Inventory
No,
changes later.
if the inventory
Oh,
changes.
okay.
And they decide, I'm making a lot of money doing vapes. Maybe I should increase my inventory. Who checks that? What's the check and balance? When does any kind of inspection happen?
So they would get inspected before they get their CO, their certificate of occupancy. But I don't think we have, the health department from the county will go in once a year and do a health inspection. We could,
For that. I don't think it would be any different than most of the zoning, because most of it's like you know, we don't go into people's backyards generally and check to death. You know what I mean? Like, everything is
Yeah.
self-reported, everything is.
Everything is a neighbor complains.
Well,
So it wouldn't be any different.
I have a feeling that this is going to be a popular ordinance if it does get into the zoning code. And I think if a business is all of a sudden selling a lot more smokes and vapes than they are allowed to,
Be more likely.
I think your phone's going to start ringing lots of that.
I think it leans itself towards that. But I guess, just in terms of the general, I guess my point was, that wouldn't be like a larger departure than any of our other enforcement, like, that's just
Right,
enforcement
it's, yeah.
tactics that we have available for this kind of framework. You know what I mean?
Well, what else is inspected like that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Most things aren't, except unless you're like, just during permitting or doing
Right.
some type of renewal. I mean, you'll-
Right, if they get any building permits or electrical permits or anything, we'll go in. But other than that, it's mostly gonna be the county coming in every year, to make sure that they're compliant. And then I wanna, reiterate the words of, our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Rita LaRue. We should really try not to put unfunded mandates into the code as well, because if we're gonna write something where, right, I have to work, I have to go to each convenience store once a year to make sure they're, behaving, that needs to have some sort of funding behind it from council, or else it's just not gonna make sense.
So about how many do you think right now are claiming to be a market and are actually performing as a smoke vape in your wild estimate? That you know of.
Over the 20%?
Like, does Wawa qualify?
I don't know. I assume that has always in my head been the standard, but I've never measured, and I certainly haven't gone through their inventory and looked for 20%.
I mean, I don't go in Wawa as much, but I'm going to say 3 out of their 5 customers are buying smokes. It just seems like it's a lot. Those people are constantly pulling packs in. So, I mean, we're going to now tell Wawa that they have to identify under a different brand? I'm just trying to figure out, if we're only talking about a few, first of all, I think there's going to be a lot of self-limiting in this market. And the strongest ones, already I've seen a couple close. Havertown, who is pretty smart on top of this stuff, doesn't seem to have anything that I know of yet. I mean, they just let them pop up. I think they're going to knock themselves out at some point.
Right, there's no way they're going to sustain.
Correct. So I just think we should have the rules that we know we can do. You can't monitor them. And if once in a while, a neighborhood person says, Mary's card shop is really a vape shop, you go, you check it, you do a rack measure, and you just notify everybody that that's what you're doing. But we'll depend on the public to help us. It's going to be the best, I think. This is just all.
And like Steve said, we do rely on the public quite a
Yeah, we
bit
rely on the
to
public. It's just
find
Like,
violations.
I was telling a few of my neighbors, and they were saying, well, how about limiting the massage parlors? Well, it's kind of the same. I mean, they're there, and they're paying their rent, so somebody is purchasing. And the vape shops, somebody is purchasing. We're not going to stop people from smoking. I know that.
Huh.
And if somebody's purchasing, and it's not illegal, we just have to say, this is how close you can be. You have to self-identify these parameters. And I would definitely at random do like a cleanliness thing in these places, just to see if they, you see rodent waste and stuff like that. That's one way you can get after a store.
Yeah, I mean, that might fall under the health department, but,
And I'm not saying they have to do it all the time, just when a public person acknowledges it.
oh, yeah, I mean, I'm sure any complaints that come in will be addressed.
Right. But I just think there's no way you can really, most of what we're worried about, there's nothing we can do about it. I think, that's just my own 2 cents.
Yeah, the best we can do is try to catch them at the time of application and say, oh, you can't be that close to an existing, and we make sure they understand all that up front, and they either say, okay, I'll move 3 blocks away, or they withdraw their application, and that's the best we're going to be able to do.
Well-
But it's better than what we do now.
There also might be somewhere with signage too.
Yeah.
Maybe making sure, like, if you're not a smoke shop, you can't have tobacco signs hanging in your window.
Yeah,
And that, at least makes it feel less like there's less smoke shops around. And that could be something we explore as well.
Well, first of all, the signs in the window are only allowed to be for special, if you look at Philadelphia, nobody follows it, but in Philadelphia, you're only supposed to you have your sign permit and says like, 10 feet by 3 feet. Anything else in addition to that is allowed temporary status for 15 days or less, X amount of days per year. So, but a lot of these smoke shops have half their storefronts covered with signs of various types.
Yeah, that's not just a smoke shop issue. That's all of our
Everybody-
stores.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
they
it's-
all have that issue.
A lot of stores have it, right? But that's the type of thing where it'd be nice to cut that back, because as soon as you start limiting their signs, this store, any store, they start thinking twice about what they want to do.
Right.
Okay, so are we saying that signage is going to be a consideration?
It's just something I'm putting out there, but I would suggest that you guys consider it.
I'm just having trouble seeing Wawa or a 7-Eleven as a smoke shop. I don't
Don't-
understand how 20%.
I don't think they would, I
It
don't
would
think they'd
not.
meet the definition.
Yeah.
They sell enough food.
Yeah, they're not going to fall into this category.
So,
Okay,
we, I mean, we're,
I know they don't, because now that I'm thinking about it, I remember the last for the most recent one, it wasn't, the use wasn't considered a smoke shop when it was approved.
Right,
So, and that had to be following an existing form, they don't really change what they do.
exactly,
Once they establish what will get approved in these townships across the state.
right.
and what about retroactive?
They would be vested under the law. You can't,
yeah.
once you change the zoning code, it would be a prior non-conforming use.
Yeah. Pennsylvania goes out of its way to protect existing nonconformities.
It would just get
Okay.
that status going forward. Now, if that use becomes abandoned and then someone else tries to come in down the line and try to do it, then you can enforce the updated zoning.
For sure. I think all it takes is a year.
Is it?
I think our code says 1 year of abandonment, and then it loses all nonconforming status.
An abandonment meaning?
Like abandoning the use, right?
Yeah, so the store is empty, vacant, nobody's in there, nobody's doing any work.
I
no-
see.
No
Okay.
permits have been pulled. There's no business permit. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait to see what kind of research Josh does and what other ordinances we can use as models, and take this up again when we've got some suggestions.
Well, what city has great ordinances or a model that we should follow?
Well, that's what the research has to be,
Yes.
is looking into, I mean, there'll be, there's like different types, like, for example, like municipalities, it's like an association of municipalities. And, like, there's like best practices collected somewhere with these kind of things, whether it's planning commissions, in fact, that planning commission training thing we looked at early in the year, they may have some stuff for recommendations as well. I can't remember the name of it. You know what I'm talking about? Remember when I think we were still a committee and they were doing trainings.
Right,
for
right.
Gotcha.
They might have something, but usually like these townships is like an association or there's planners, the APA, I think it is, or, code
Yeah, there's
enforcement.
lots of,
stuff like
yeah,
this.
there's lots
Usually
out there.
Bodies that kind of like try to tackle these kind of issues and, you gotta start, library, I guess. But
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking, of the inordinate amount of bodegas that are in Philly. They are not in Villanova or Berwyn or Radnor. What are they doing that Philadelphia isn't doing? What's in their codes that is saying this is not allowed?
Well,
They are allowed.
They are allowed. I don't think they
Yeah.
would be, the residents, they wouldn't do much business.
They
Yeah,
wouldn't get
no
the
one would go there.
business. Or the rent, the rent is so much
Yeah,
the rent
it
per
wouldn't
square
be-
foot is prohibitive to run a bodega at that cost. You have to be selling products that are much more expensive to even meet your rent in Villanova.
It's also tough to really compare anything to Philly because it's a class.
Yeah, I don't
one.
like to.
And they,
Yeah.
it's like just a whole different animal, the way their own code kind of is even, like the authority behind, like it's just a different animal because it's a class 1 city.
And that's a good, when I usually
I
do,
wouldn't even use them really as a reference. I would try to find more comparable to us.
when I do research for zoning or other ordinances, I generally try and I'll look at like Scranton, I'll look at Norristown, I'll look at Abington, I'll look at Cheltenham, kind of places that are either close to us in size or close to us in character. That's what I try and stay around. So places
Okay.
like those. Reading, that's a good one too.
Yeah, Scranton's a good one. We use that sometimes in the finance world as we're looking at things. We use Scranton as an example. The size-wise, the size of their budget and so on is very comparable to us.
Okay.
Really? That's interesting.
They don't have that many more people,
Pardon me?
right? They don't have that many more people than Upper Darby, right? No.
Nope, it's all yeah, it's a good comparison for a number of things. Okay, so we're good with where we stand on that? All right, then Josh also sent out the review that was done by the organization that came in to take a look at our zoning code and what it might say or not say regarding all things solar. And also, depending on how your zoning code does address solar, you can be labeled with, and Josh is going to explain further, but you can get certain labels that give you certain status that, yes, like, oh, you're on your way to being a much greener place or not, and so on. And I think we're going to see that there are some things we probably will want to think about enhancing our zoning code with to maybe get us on the path to some better designations for being encouraging and using proper use of solar. So once again, Josh can give us some illumination.
Sure. So, wow, very nice. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Soul Smart program, what it is, and then kind of our involvement in it so far, and then where we want to take it in the future. So, Soul Smart is kind of like a self-audit program that was developed by the U.S. Department of Energy U.S. Department of Energy's Solar Energy Technologies Office. And it's designed to eliminate soft costs through municipalities. So those soft costs are things like administrative redundancies, extra steps, confusion in processes, and streamlining and strategizing for making solar easier and affordable. And essentially, the way it works is they give you a whole list of ways that you can improve the way you administer solar, residential and commercial solar panel installation. And the more things you check off, the more points you get, and they'll give you a certain designation, either bronze, silver, gold. So about a year and a half ago, I started working on getting Upper Darby into the program and then into some sort of medal. Right now, we qualify for bronze, but between some of the work that we've been doing, especially with the roof here going completely solar, and I believe the Watkins Center going solar, we felt like it would be within our grasp to achieve silver as well, and then hopefully one day gold. But right now, we're trying to achieve silver. And one of the things that we really have to take a look at to do that is how can we improve our zoning code? So the first thing they'll do when you're going for any of these categories is they'll sit down and do a zoning review of your ordinance. That review is what I sent everybody last week. So they'll go through and they'll look and they'll essentially just go over things that need to change and what priority they need to change. So even just reviewing this will get us points. And the next way to get us more points is to change the code, which is something that I think we need to do anyway, because as it says in here, our zoning code doesn't address solar panels at all, which, is something that we definitely need to change. And if we're going to embrace the township's vision of sustainability and start fighting against climate change and doing our part, it's something that we really need to pursue.
If the zoning code currently doesn't address solar panels, how is permitting and kind of use handled currently?
So right now, it's just accepted as an accessory use for residential and commercial facilities.
Any residential?
Right, so it's And that's a zoning determination that I made, that it's allowed because of this. So it would really be helpful if we had more limiting, or not even limiting, just more helpful guidance, you know?
What about the building? Is it silent in the building code as well?
No, the building code speaks to it, but that's at a state level.
Because we adopt the IBC, or not adopt, adopt.
Yeah, we have some additions, but yeah, the IBC, the IRC. But there's no zoning that speaks to it. So it's kind of in like a limbo.
Right.
And there's also there's nothing to address like large scale solar projects too, right? If someone wanted to take like a block and do a solar project, maybe that means a little less here, but you know, it's still something that we don't address and we probably would want to.
Or maybe standalone solar, what do they call them? Solar farms?
Exactly.
Like you're just in the ground and not necessarily on a building.
Right, so right now it's just an accessory use. So we definitely would love to get some language in and designate some places for those things to happen.
Okay, well, let's go. Let's do this.
Well, if building covers it now, would ours just follow the same as theirs?
Building code? No, building code's concerned with, right, the strength of the roof and the type of materials and how it's fastened on and the electric running down it. It doesn't really deal with it as, you know, as it could be a nuisance.
And how,
When you submit an application, or is it, I guess it's not, well, it's an accessory use, right? So you would submit an application, currently, I mean,
Mhm.
submit an application with what? Like what plans, because it's not at the building stage yet, right?
No, you would submit a building permit and an electrical permit, and then I would just review that quickly to make sure that it's right an accessory use. And if it's on the ground as an accessory use, then it's right following the same requirements that maybe a shed would be. But again, that's all determination. It's not written into law. So if one day that were to get challenged, it could definitely be a possibility that, right, it could change my determination. So it'd be good to codify it.
we also have to consider wind, or is that not going to be an issue here?
I believe the building code considers wind, so we don't have to worry about that.
No, wind for generating electricity.
That would be different. We could definitely consider that, maybe in a different ordinance, though. Because I don't know the first thing about wind, so wind power.
I don't either, but it just, from what people tell me, it's picking up more interest
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, that's good as well.
We would have to establish, one, a definition of the use, right?
Right, and I can go through the comments too, which I think kind of speak to that a little bit.
Let's.
Yeah, I thought that this was really well written by this group and gives us, almost a roadmap
Oh, for sure.
to like, I mean, if you look box by box, it's so nicely laid out. We don't even have a definition, so they give us one, and they say right here, consider adding this definition, and they give us 2 examples. And then the next box is, it should be a high priority that you address auxiliary use. They give us a comment, and boom, they give us examples as to how to fix it. I thought this was a really great report.
Yeah, they did a really nice job.
Yeah, I mean, we could basically go through, and so long as we agreed that these things had to be addressed, my gosh, they've even given us the examples as to what words to choose and how you can do it. I like that they gave us 2 examples too, for each thing, each fix. Like, here's if you want to go really hardcore on it. Here's if you just kind of want to step in the pool. You can say this.
It's nice.
What's been the biggest issues you've had to deal with so far?
I haven't really yet had to deal with too many issues, but, I'd like it to stay that way, and I'd
Okay.
certainly like to encourage more solar use than we even have now.
Right, I just wanted to know if there was anything that people kept getting confused on something, or, like,
Oh.
neighbor's trees blocking my sunlight and I can't put it on, like any of that stuff?
No,
I have friends that happen to, but that's
Okay.
another whole.
I haven't gotten any reports of that yet. You know, as solar power gets more popular, it would be helpful to, you know, provide some sort of framework. But no, I haven't had anything quite like that yet.
Because that, what happened in this case was the neighbor didn't like the solar panels view from their home, so they bought some very mature trees that grew very quickly, and it
The sunlight?
blocked the sunlight.
Does, because I'm looking at the so it says the zoning ordinance does not clearly state the certain types and sizes of solar energy systems are considered accessory uses.
Mhm.
Does our accessory use language say anything about solar? Because,
No, our,
so this means like it's not in there, okay. I
there's,
thought it was saying, it doesn't say what type of solar energy.
I think if you type in solar into the zoning code, nothing will pop up,
Wow,
which is very behind the times.
wow.
So I can see why, okay.
Actually, that's not true. Solar yielded 2 results.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This too.
Yeah, that's what it says, I think. I
Right,
said
two.
solar, yeah.
My mistake.
They searched the entire code, they could, and that only came up twice. You know, and with the idea that the zoning code is there to help us guide what we want developed. Someone's thinking about solar and they look at our code, they're getting no guidance. There's nothing
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Right, and we've,
We need to be a little more encouraging, like, and guide them. And like they're saying here, search for renewable energy, 0 results, clean energy, 0 results.
and that might be, you know, something that helps make some, you know, change someone's mind. At the end of
Right.
the day, if they have like a easy, clean process to follow, then maybe it's not, you know, that's maybe what they're saying when they're saying cutting down the soft costs, cutting down the red tape. Like, oh, okay, I can streamline this process. It really won't be that bad. You know, I can do this easy, fast, and, you know,
Yeah,
start contributing
from
back.
their standpoint, if they can read the code and say, okay, if I'm going to come in with the proposal, I know what I have to do. It's clear in front of me right now. They have no idea.
But I think that the people that do have solar, the solar companies are pretty impressive. What my friend that did it said, they knew everything they had to do. There was no question.
Right, but they don't, they certainly know what they're doing, but does it meet our code?
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah, they're just gonna want to get it in and make
Yeah.
money.
So like, so I was trying to ask you, what problems have you had? And you said you really haven't had any. So what are we trying to look out for? That's where I'm starting to.
Yeah, so I mean, like anything in the zoning code, right? It's, you know, a function of the police power. It's making sure, stopping problems before they happen. You know, making sure that nuisances don't exist.
Right, so what would they be? What would a nuisance be?
So it could be something like the tree. It could be someone maybe wanting a solar panel in their yard. Um, Maybe someone even wants to put it right, you know, a foot off their property line. We don't have anything that really says it. The size of it, right? Is there a maximum size? Is there a minimum size?
Well, minimum wouldn't apply.
Report is like less, I guess, concerned with that type of stuff, because I imagine they just want to get solar language in here.
Right.
And most of this is about the use, like just explaining that that is a use and what the use is.
Right.
And the definition of it, but we would obviously have to go a little bit further than that, because we can't just have a blanket use and nothing in terms of dimensional, well, yeah, dimensional restriction.
Right.
Well,
I think
yeah,
we
they-
wanted to.
They address height. I think they get the preliminary, you know, the kind of the basics. They mention height, they mention screening. They
Screening.
mention setbacks, you know, how close, and they mention lot coverage.
That's good too.
I read that a while ago. I don't have my copy with me.
Yeah.
Is there any, I mean, it would be something you would never want in the front yard or a side yard facing another property.
Right.
I think that accessory uses should, you know, the rules should still apply, right?
I think, yeah, it would be treated like a shed.
Front yards and side yards and setbacks and stuff.
Right,
It should still apply to solar stuff.
sure.
Yeah, that's why,
Same rules fencing.
yes, yeah.
I mean, I think overall, it's definitely a good idea to update the code to have this
Yeah.
type of language. And then the examples obviously are helpful. I mean, I wouldn't just like copy and paste from this, because this is obviously coming you know, I would still want to look at maybe other municipalities who have,
For sure.
you know, language that's maybe been around for a little bit and maybe have been tweaked once they figured out the issues that we haven't identified yet and hasn't come up. But, I mean, I think overall, it's a good idea to have something. I mean, I don't frequently see, I'm trying to think if I really have ever seen one on a residential house.
There's a bunch in my neighborhood.
Yeah, there's,
So I'm sure they exist, I'm just trying to think like anecdotally. So I don't know how, like, what the frequency of the permitting, but it can't hurt. I mean,
Yeah, I could tell you.
I think it just modernized the code a little bit.
Actually, we have a map dedicated to it that I can pull up. It's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, in here, like with each category, they list what they think the best practice is. And if we had that to compare to what our neighbors are doing in this particular geography, we could, for each of these categories, pick something we think works best around here.
One of the things I did not understand, Josh, was screening requirements. What does that mean exactly?
So that means like you're screening from your neighbors. So that's like a buffer so that maybe they would see it or wouldn't see it. And that probably has more to do with making sure that it gets sunlight. But I'd have to look into that a little further.
See, I'm thinking like, I don't know if maybe we should start with structure-based system. I'm not sure if I would be on board with these panels like on the ground in residential properties, but I just see a lot of issues in terms of like nuisance stuff and neighbors and et cetera with each other. But I don't know what you call them, the ones that go on top of your house.
Rooftop.
They're just called rooftop panels.
Rooftop
Yeah,
PV systems,
rooftop
yeah.
panels. I mean, to me, I think that's the starting point. At least if we can get that, or roof-mounted system, whatever they're called.
Yeah, or maybe if you wanted, you could always have it in the RC or the RC1, our lowest density districts. You could have them as accessories there and maybe not in our tighter districts, so it's not right
If you had
squeezed
to-
in there.
If you had to guess, would you say you see more residential applications for this or commercial?
Oh, absolutely. 98% right now are residential. And that's because I don't think there's a lot of commercial incentive. I think most of the incentive right now lies with residential permits.
So don't we have like a height bonus thing for what is it, C4?
C3.
Does that sound right?
C3, we have a height bonus, I believe, if you do a green roof or solar. No one really uses that. Love for that to expand to some of the other districts, but it's only in the C3, so it's kind of,
Other commercial districts.
right, it's only one commercial district. Anyway, up here, this is a map of all of the solar panel applications we received in the last, I'd say, probably 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a good amount, but, we could always
Saying
make
those
it.
are generally residential rooftop?
Yeah, absolutely, 98%. Yep.
Do we require, maybe this is outside of purview zoning, but is there any sort of special licensing that's required for the folks that install these things? That's different than just like an electrician or something like that?
No.
Just like, and just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you need an electrician's license, and then our inspectors have a certain certification for, I believe, solar,
Okay.
which they have. And there's actually, as part of this is also training. So like for our staff, yeah. So there is a video for zoning. There's a video for permitting staff. There's a video for inspectors that they want you to watch. And right, as you do that, you'll get points because you're improving your system.
So how do you think we should proceed?
I would start like any other, ordinance rewrite that we're doing, by looking at other municipalities, collecting some data together and getting some rough drafts out there.
Okay.
You know, we can always pick it apart and put it back together. As long as, you know, giving you guys something to start with, though, I think is helpful.
Right. And I feel like whether, and the initial goal, though, as well as, you know, all that good stuff that we need to do for ourselves is, but if we can incorporate at least, maybe not their words, but hit the elements they talk about, that does work on getting us the silver status to the gold status.
Absolutely, and I can
through
share
the-
this.
For the Fed, Department of Energy.
And maybe I'll share this, but I can also pass it around. It kind of goes through, you guys are gonna see all my notes, but it goes through all the different ways that you can earn points, and here, I'll pass it around.
And so what ultimately, what prize do you get when you get gold status?
What prize?
I mean, do you win the lottery? What?
I think ultimately it helps when you're going for like grants and stuff like that. That
I
they see
see.
that you're a Soul Smart community. So you guys actually care about solar. So maybe one day if we wanted to apply for a grant, right, that has something to do with solar, they'd say, oh, okay, you guys are actually serious. And
Understood.
then maybe we could get more funding.
Like, for example, when we sometimes might go for a grant from the Department of Health, they want to know, well, geez, have you done any studies on walkable cities? Have you done any, you know, what have you
Yeah.
done to your parks lately? And if you can say, yes, we've done this and we've achieved these levels of certification, it gives you extra points on the grant to keep.
Oh, good Lord.
Is there certain, well, the designation of, you know, bronze, silver, gold,
Mhm.
that certification comes from the feds or from Soul Smart?
From Soul Smart, which is a product of the feds, but
So is there a timeline that we need to be aware of like, oh, we need to be submission of, like, of whatever materials or application or draft ordinances by a certain time to meet a deadline for consideration for this new, you know what I mean?
I
Like, was it
would,
just rolling?
last I checked, there was no issue. I definitely, when, you know, while the current administration's here, you'd want to get it, not here, but in the White House, I would get it done. Because I think a lot of that funding's coming through there. But if I hear any differently, I'll let you guys know. But as of right now, we should be able,
Up against the clock right
I
now.
don't believe so. But, you know, with administration changes, sometimes things get pushed and pulled and,
Normal political process.
Right.
There's no, gotcha.
that's all I have.
Okay, anybody have any other
This-
questions for
this is
Josh or?
incredibly detailed.
Yeah, we're not gonna get every point. But, you know, I think you need 100 for silver, 200 for gold. So it's not, you know, they're not expecting you to do everything. But anything you do is making it better.
Yeah, I did see in here that even the fact that you presented this to us and signed
That's
it and
5 points.
accepted that we all acknowledge, we've talked about it, that even gets us a little bit.
Right,
And,
exactly.
just bringing the awareness up helped.
right. I mean, the gold and silver, it's nice to say you have it, but really what they want to do is they want to make it easier. They want to keep people informed.
Yeah,
That's just kind of a
Little
prize
carrot
for us.
there.
Yeah, a carrot for us to chase.
Do you find that in those clusters, is it that because a company went in there door to door and solicited? What is creating the clusters in some areas and none in others?
You know, that I'm not sure. I was actually pleasantly surprised that it was decently spread out. But we don't know yet in Upper Darby. We really haven't. All we've been doing is tracking, right, what we have. And if we do implement, we can use it to see if it's made a difference.
I mean, because I remember someone came around, God, probably 5, 6 years ago to my block and was soliciting.
Yeah.
Um,
They'll come
I
around.
don't think anyone on my block bid, but, you know,
There's a lot more companies now than there were 5 years ago too. Because, you know, 5 years ago, you see the same, like maybe 3, 4 names. But now there's a lot. There's a lot of startups.
and do we have any jurisdiction over these solar startups?
All our jurisdiction would be from the regulations that we set,
Okay.
which right now are none.
How about for the township building? You said it's already in effect here?
The what?
Here, the roof here is solar.
Yeah, it
Is-
roofs here solar.
how
Mike
long has-
can
how
speak to
long-
that a little bit too.
How long has that been running and what are the numbers on that?
Come to the mic.
Sure. The solar, yeah, I could just come up here. I don't need to use it.
Yeah, turn it
so
on.
what, you know, Mayor Keffer,
Mike, yeah.
one of the big goals of administration, Mayor Keffer, was to get solar panels on municipal buildings. So the one is the municipal building. We have a full array on the roof. Maybe next meeting, if we get here early, you can go take a look at it. It's all set up. And then we also have one on Watkins Center. So they're all ballasted systems. There is going to be
Systems?
ballasted, so they're on a ballast system. So basically, they're not it's physically attached to the roof. The way they do solar panels now is they weigh them down with blocks and brick, and they're all arranged in an array. So that's all up on the roof right now. And
Sorry,
so
you said they're not attached to the roof?
they're ballasted.
Because it's a flat roof.
It's a flat roof, yeah, it's ballasted, yeah.
If it's a shingle roof, you can't do that.
Shingle roof, no, you would attach to the shingle roof, and that's a residential application too. You could also do it on a shingle roof if we had a shingle roof building for a township building, you know, if we had a roof that, we don't have many, most of our buildings are flat roofs. So essentially what you do is, well, what we did is we put a design together, put it out for bid, got a contractor on board. The biggest piece of the puzzle, probably one of the longest lead items in solar, is the interconnection agreement. You have to do a PICO. That takes time because PICO has to allow you to interconnect to the grid and, you know, basically push the energy back out. One of the other things that's big is the disconnect. So there's a disconnect that has to be visible because if there's ever an emergency or a fire, you got to be able to disconnect it so that you're not still running energy out of it, you know? So there were the two big things, but the arrays are up. Now they're in the decommissioning phase. So Watkins Center is completely installed. The municipal building's completely installed, and now they're getting commissioned. So they're basically commissioning them, making sure everything's connected properly, everything's working properly. And then what they're going to do at the end is down in the one center, which was just recently completed, they're going to put a kiosk down there, and we're going to be able to see how much energy use we're getting from what benefit we're getting from the solar panels, so how much energy the solar panels are creating. So it's actually pretty cool, and they're up on the roof right now, and, you know, it's a pretty decent array, so.
But do you know how much energy they're?
I don't know the
Too early to
exact,
tell yet.
well, I don't know what, they are set systems, like there are a certain amount of kilowatts that they're generating. I don't have that information on the top of my head right now, but I could probably look it up on my phone in the next 5 minutes.
I wouldn't know what
Yeah.
it's good or bad. I was just curious to know, like, to what level it's performing at this point.
Yeah, well, we don't have that yet because it's still got to be, there's still a few more items that have to get done for the commissioning stage, and then it gets turned on, and the disconnect gets turned on, and then the energy goes through the system.
I'd say most residential, I think we see it's like 5 to 8 kilowatts
Yeah,
generally for most residential houses. Depends how many you
ours
have.
is a lot more than that.
Well, yeah,
It's a
this is
bigger
commercial.
array.
This
Yeah.
is, you guys probably have what, 40?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know the exact amount.
That's
off the
like
top of my
having
head.
16 panels, but that's what I see most of the day.
Yeah.
5 to 8 kilowatts for residents
Yeah.
generating in a day.
Generally
And how
speak.
much does the
Well, that's
average
not,
home?
I think that's the capacity of the machine, of the system. So that would be, you would multiply that by how many hours of sun you get, and I think that's what you get in the day.
Like, how many kilowatt does the average house in Upper Darby use in a day?
I have no idea.
I'm just trying to start
Yeah, yeah.
understand numbers in comparison, so.
Yeah, I know people that have gotten the residential systems, and typically it'll be, you know, the way residential systems work is they do what I've seen recently is they do a solar lease. So they put the panels on your roof, they lease them back to you, and you pay less of an electric bill based on the lease payment. And that typically covers, it's my understanding, like based on the ones I've seen, and it all depends on the size of the roof, how much sunlight you're getting. But what I've seen is that it would generally cover your cost, except maybe in the winter months where you don't get as much sun, and it's colder out, you got more clouds, maybe you don't get as much, you know, you might have to pay a little bit more for your electric bill, but
And
it
Mike,
all
you get,
varies.
you get paid too for anything extra, right?
Anything extra, I think there is a credit that would be, I don't know if they pay you, but you might get a credit if you're selling electric back on the system, on the grid, depending on how much usage that you have. So,
Is our setup, is our system, if, like the commercial system, is it set up to do that as well? If we reach that capacity? like,
I don't,
push back up?
it probably could, but I think for the size of our roof and we have the size of our building, it won't be enough to really, we'll need more power than what the solar can provide us, but it will be an offset, which is pretty cool. Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
I noticed as I was looking through the program guide that on the different categories of things you can do, they do give an example of 1 or 2 communities who have done it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was kind of nice.
It's incredibly detailed.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. I mean, they're really trying hard to give you
Push it.
guidance, yeah, to do this kind of thing. Okay, so we don't really, well, old business-wise, we tabled what did we table working at? Huh? No, but didn't we also,
Parking.
yeah, so we have a few things tabled that will remain tabled for this month. Does anybody have any new business? No?
What's parking tabled? What's tabled for parking?
I believe it was, we were going to re-examine residential driveway requirements.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nothing to do with the permits like other towns have where the residents want to park on the street have to put a decal
No,
on their car.
council has ordinances that they're working on about that.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, that wouldn't be us.
Yeah, council's got that covered. Okay, so new business, no? Motion to adjourn?
A second?
All in favor? We're done?
We're done.
Aye, okay. Happy holidays.